You see those massive container ships out on the ocean, and you just kind of take it for granted, right? I mean, they're huge, they're made of steel, they're carrying thousands of tons. But have you ever stopped to think about the incredible, invisible war being waged on that hull every single second? Well, that's what we're diving into. And just so we're clear on the stakes, this is what happens when that war is lost. No, that is not a movie special effect. That is a real cargo ship that literally broke in two. The forces we're about to talk about aren't just some textbook theory. They are powerful enough to tear steel apart. So that begs the question, right? What invisible force could possibly do that? Well, it's not just one thing. It's a whole collection of stresses, a constant, complex attack that naval architects have been fighting against for centuries. To get our heads around this, we have to start with the most basic thing that keeps a ship afloat in the first place. Because, funnily enough, that's also the source of all the stress. It all kicks off with this constant battle, the ship's own weight fighting against the water it's sitting in. You probably remember this guy from high school science class, Archimedes. His principle is super simple. The water pushes up on the ship with a force that's exactly equal to the weight of all the water that the ship moved out of the way. That upward push, that's buoyancy. So you can picture it like a giant tug of war along the entire length of the ship. All the weight, the steel, the cargo, the fuel, is pulling down. Gravity, right? At the exact same time, buoyancy is pushing up from the water below. And when those two forces aren't perfectly balanced everywhere, that's where you get stress. And that imbalance leads directly to the number one biggest threat to a ship's structure. It's this massive hull-bending force that tries to fold the ship right in the middle. Now, this bending happens in two ways. It's called hogging and sagging. Okay, think of the ship like a giant seesaw. When it hogs, the middle is pushed up and the ends droop down. This pulls the deck apart. That's tension. Sagging is the complete opposite. The middle sags down, which squeezes the deck together, but stretches the bottom of the hull. And let me tell you, both are incredibly dangerous. And here's the wild part. This can happen even in perfectly calm water. It all depends on how you load the cargo. See here? If you pile heavy stuff in the middle, the ship is going to sag. But if you put the heavy loads at the ends and leave the middle tanks empty, the buoyancy in the middle will push it up, causing it to hog. It's this incredibly delicate balancing act that starts long before the ship ever leaves the dock. But, that's just the ship sitting still. The real drama, the dynamic, bone-jarring forces that can snap a ship's back, that all starts the second it meets waves out on the open sea. Because now, the ocean itself gets in on the action. When a big wave crest passes right under the middle of the ship, it's like a giant hand suddenly shoving it upwards, forcing it into a hog. But then, just seconds later, that wave passes and the ship is over a trough. All that support is gone and it slumps down into a sag. And this just happens again and again and again for the entire voyage. So a ship is constantly bending up and down. But the ocean doesn't just attack from below. Oh no, it also comes at the ship from the sides, trying to twist its entire shape. And that leads to a whole different kind of stress. I mean, think about it. Waves aren't these perfect, symmetrical things. They're chaotic. So as a ship rolls from side to side in the water, its whole body gets subjected to this powerful twisting force. It's a phenomenon called racking. And the absolute best way to picture it is to imagine holding a square picture frame and then trying to twist it to push one corner up and the other down, turning it into a parallelogram. That is exactly what the sea is trying to do to the cross-section of the ship with every single roll. Okay, so we've got bending, we've got twisting, but the assault isn't over. There are also these really violent localized stresses that are less like a constant push and more like a series of targeted punches on specific parts of the hull. First up is something called panting. As the bow of the ship plows through the water, the pressure outside is constantly changing, and that makes the steel plates of the hull flex in and out, almost like it's breathing. It's most intense right up at the front. And then there's something even more brutal, pounding. Yeah, it's just as bad as it sounds. In really heavy seas, the entire front end of the ship can lift completely out of the water and then crash back down with a mind-boggling violent slam. That impact sends a massive shockwave through the entire ship. And when you add all of this up, the bending, the twisting, the panting, the pounding, day after day, year after year, it can lead to two hidden killers in the steel itself. You have brittle fracture, which is when the steel just snaps. No warning, catastrophic failure. And then you have fatigue. This is more like bending a paperclip back and forth. Tiny, invisible cracks start to grow with each stress cycle, and they grow and grow over years until one day the structure just gives up.
So after hearing all that, you have to be wondering, how on earth does any ship survive this punishment? Well, the answer is inside the hull. It's an amazing, brilliantly engineered steel skeleton designed specifically to fight back.
This is what a ship's defense system looks like. It's this incredibly complex internal frame of beams and girders. It might look like a chaotic mess, but every single piece in there has a very specific job to do. And that job is to absorb and spread out all those incredible forces we just talked about.
And this framing basically is two key parts. You've got transverse framing. You can think of these as the ship's ribs. They run side to side, and their main job is to stop the ship from twisting and racking. Then you have longitudinal framing. These are massive beams that run the whole length of the ship, like a spine. They're the main defense against those huge bending forces of hogging and sagging. And altogether, they create this super strong interlocking grid.
And this really gets us to the most important idea. A ship isn't designed to be a perfectly stiff, rigid box. If it were, it would snap like a twig. No. Instead, it's this incredibly smart structure that's engineered to be flexible. It's meant to bend, to flex, and to twist just a little bit, so it can absorb and dissipate the ocean's energy instead of trying to fight it head-on. And this quote from the source material just nails it. The greatest stresses are due to the distribution of loads. At the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. Whether that load is 1,000 tons of cargo or a 50-foot wave, it's all about how the ship's structure manages and distributes that force.
So I'll leave you with this thought. The next time you see one of those giant ships gliding over the horizon, are you just going to see a boat carrying a bunch of boxes? Or are you going to see it for what it truly is? A masterpiece of flexible engineering, constantly bending, but designed never to break, locked in an epic, unending fight with the ocean itself.